Have you ever wondered why some people suddenly treat you like you don't matter, even though you've stayed the same? What if I told you that this common feeling becomes even more noticeable as we age? When friends stop calling, family ignores your advice, and even little things like forgotten birthdays start to hurt more deeply? And here's the real question: how would your life change if you could shift the way others see you without saying a single word? As we grow older, it's surprisingly common to feel invisible or unappreciated. Friends no longer reach out like they used to, and family members may stop asking for your thoughts or opinions. Even something as small as someone not noticing when you grow quiet can leave a wound deeper than you'd expect. But here's a truth that's often forgotten: your worth doesn't vanish just because others fail to recognize it. And more importantly, you don't need to raise your voice, argue, or desperately seek attention to prove your value. In this video, we'll explore 7 simple yet powerful strategies that older adults can use to regain respect after 60. These methods aren't about playing mind games or getting revenge. They're about making subtle shifts in the way you carry yourself, allowing others to naturally recognize your presence again. From quiet changes in how you spend your time to deliberate ways of pulling back your energy, each strategy is designed to help you reclaim your inner power without even having to speak. Be sure to watch all the way through, because near the end, you'll uncover one unique mindset shift that not only helps you regain respect after 60, but could also completely transform how others react to you from this day forward. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon. This channel is dedicated to people like you, those who are still growing, still learning, and becoming even stronger with age. Let's dive in with the very first strategy: quietly pulling back your energy. One of the clearest signs that someone no longer values you is when your presence starts to feel optional. They reply to messages slower, cancel plans without a second thought, and stop checking in on how you're doing. When someone begins to ignore you or act distant, your natural instinct might be to try harder. You may feel tempted to call more often, explain yourself, or ask what went wrong. But here's what truly wise people do instead. They simply pull back, quietly and gracefully. Not out of anger or with dramatic gestures, but with calm, steady dignity. You stop being the one who always initiates the conversation. You stop offering help where it's no longer wanted or appreciated. Instead, you allow the silence to speak on your behalf. This approach isn't about punishing anyone. It's about giving yourself the space you deserve, the space to reflect and to remember your own value without relying on anyone else's validation. People always notice when energy shifts. When the person who was always there suddenly isn't, it leaves a noticeable gap. In that quiet space, others are left alone with their thoughts, and that's where realizations begin to form. Psychologically, this touches on a timeless truth: what becomes less available often becomes more desirable. By stepping back, you break the pattern. You shift from being constantly present to being unexpectedly missed. Let me share a story about Carl, a 72-year-old man who had always gone out of his way to help his neighbor. He picked up groceries, fixed little things around the house, and even watched the neighbor's dog. But one day, the neighbor began acting cold. Short replies, no words of thanks, not even a smile. Instead of confronting him or complaining, Carl made a quiet decision. He simply stopped offering help. He didn't act upset or bitter. He focused on his own daily life, taking walks, enjoying his puzzles, and tending to his garden. 3 weeks later, the neighbor knocked on his door and asked, "You doing okay? Haven't seen you around much." Carl smiled politely, exchanged a few friendly words, but never returned to overextending himself. And that's the real magic of this approach. When you quietly withdraw your energy, without resentment or harsh words, people start to feel your absence, not because you demanded it, but because they had taken your presence for granted. And here's the most important part: whether or not they return, you've already won. You've stopped chasing those who didn't see your worth, and instead, you've begun to rediscover it for yourself. Now, let's move to the next powerful step: starting to value your time like it's pure gold. Time becomes even more precious as we age, not less. Yet, when someone stops respecting you, one of the clearest signs is how carelessly they treat your time. They show up late, cancel plans at the last minute, or expect you to wait around as if you have nothing else to do. But here's something many older adults often overlook. The more you respect your own time, the more others will, too. The more you respect your own time, the more others will begin to respect it too. And it always starts with the small decisions. You stop rearranging your schedule to accommodate theirs. You stop saying yes simply because you feel guilty or obligated. Instead, you allow them to clearly see that your time has value, that your presence has a cost, and that you're no longer offering it so freely. Think about Tom, a 78-year-old grandfather who used to babysit for his adult son's children 3 times a week. He truly loved spending time with his grandkids, but the constant late-night phone calls, the last-minute schedule changes, and the growing sense of being unappreciated began to weigh on him. One day, without frustration or anger, he calmly declined a request by simply saying, "That doesn't work for me anymore." At first, his son was surprised by the response, but gradually, things started to shift. His son began calling ahead, making plans in advance, and even expressing his gratitude more openly and sincerely. Tom didn't lecture or scold anyone. He simply made it clear, through his actions, that his time was valuable again. And that subtle change shifted everything. When you begin to guard your hours as carefully as you would protect your money, people take notice. They start to realize that your time isn't something they can take for granted. If they want to be part of your life, they need to respect your time and show up with greater care and intention. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment with the number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend doing so and turning on the notification bell. Your support allows us to keep creating thoughtful, inspiring content just for you. Now, let's move forward with the next important step: doing something just for yourself every single day. When others stop valuing you, it becomes easy to forget how much your own self-respect matters. You might begin to neglect the things that once brought you joy. You may put your own needs aside, thinking that nobody is paying attention anyway. But here's a quiet truth that's often overlooked. When you start treating yourself like you matter, others slowly begin to follow your lead. This doesn't need to be anything dramatic or complicated. It could be as simple as taking your morning coffee out to the porch and enjoying it slowly, savoring the moment just for yourself. Maybe it means picking up that paintbrush again or returning to a walking trail you haven't visited in a long time. It could even be something as small as putting on your favorite outfit, even if there's no one around to see it. What matters most isn't the action itself, it's the message you send to yourself. You're quietly saying, "I'm still here. I still matter." That simple shift in how you treat yourself has a way of sending quiet ripples outward. I remember hearing about Frank, an 81-year-old man who had lost his wife a few years earlier. His children still loved him, but over time, their phone calls became fewer and far between. He began to feel invisible, as though he had been quietly forgotten. One Sunday, Frank decided to change something. Not for anyone else, but for himself. He started making Sunday dinners again, just like he used to. He would light candles, play his favorite old jazz records, and cook meals he once enjoyed with his wife. It was his way of honoring himself and finding comfort in familiar routines. One evening, a neighbor happened to stop by during one of these dinners. Then another visit followed. Before long, those dinners became more than just a personal ritual. They slowly turned into small gatherings where laughter and warmth returned to his home. Frank didn't just regain his joy. He unknowingly began drawing people back in, not because he asked them to, but because they could feel the difference in his energy. That's the beautiful part. You don't need to explain this shift to anyone. You simply start. And when others see you living as though your life still holds deep meaning, they can't help but notice. You're no longer fading away. You're coming alive again. Now, let's talk about another powerful step: learning to stop explaining yourself. One of the most common ways we unknowingly give away our power is by over-explaining ourselves to people who have already decided not to care. You explain why you're hurt, why you feel disappointed, why you need what you need, but when someone no longer values you, your words begin to feel weightless. They drift through the air without any real impact. Here's the shift. Stop justifying yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation for needing rest, setting boundaries, or saying no. You don't need to prove that you deserve kindness, respect, or consideration. The more you explain yourself, the smaller you become, because you're essentially asking for permission to feel what you already feel. There is something remarkably strong about a quiet, firm decision. I'm reminded of Eleanor, a woman who, at 75, finally told her younger sister that she wouldn't be lending money anymore. She didn't bring up every past favor or explain how much stress it had caused her. She simply said, "No, not this time." The silence afterward was uncomfortable, but it was also incredibly powerful. That moment wasn't just about refusing a loan. It was the moment Eleanor stopped defending herself and started honoring her own worth. When you speak less but speak with conviction, your words carry far more weight. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to argue or plead. You simply allow your choices to stand as they are. And here's the irony. Once you stop explaining yourself, people often start paying closer attention. Suddenly, your boundaries don't sound like requests anymore. They sound like firm truths. You become someone who quietly commands respect, not through loud words, but through unwavering self-respect. The person who no longer explains themselves doesn't have to ask for respect. They simply expect it, and that quiet shift can change everything around you. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, I'd love to know you're here. Please leave a comment with the number 4 below to let me know you're following along. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Your support truly helps us continue creating meaningful content to inform, empower, and inspire you. Now, let's move forward with another key step: changing the routine they've come to expect. Many times, people don't stop valuing you because they suddenly dislike you. It's often something far more subtle. They simply get too used to having you around. When you always answer the phone on the first ring, always agree to help with every little favor, or sit quietly through someone else's endless stories, these actions start to feel like background noise, so familiar they become invisible. That's where the quiet solution lies. The key is to gently interrupt that routine. Do something slightly different, not out of anger, not to get revenge, but simply to bring back awareness. It's a way of reminding both yourself and others that your presence is a choice, not something to take for granted. Think about it. If you're always the one who calls first, pause for a few days and don't call. If you always say yes to every invitation, try politely declining once or twice. If you always listen but never speak up, start sharing your thoughts, even if they seem small at first. These aren't punishments, they're subtle reminders. You're showing others, through quiet actions, that your time and energy aren't endless resources. Margaret, a 79-year-old woman, found herself in this very situation. For years, her daughter would drop off the grandkids, chat for 5 minutes, then rush out the door. Margaret would cook, clean, and help with homework, but slowly, she started to feel more like an unpaid helper than a valued family member, like she was just part of the furniture. One day, Margaret made a quiet change. She didn't answer the door because she wasn't home. She had gone out, just for herself. The next week, something surprising happened. Her daughter showed up earlier. She stayed longer. She asked how Margaret was doing, really doing. That's the power of changing the routine. It reminds others, without words, that you are not simply an automatic part of their day. You're a person who chooses where and how to spend your time. What happened in that moment was simple but powerful. The routine broke, and in that space, something shifted. Her daughter was able to see Margaret again, not just as a helper or a caretaker, but as a whole person with her own needs, her own life, and her own choices. It doesn't take grand, sweeping gestures to change the way others treat you. Often, it's the small, intentional changes that make the biggest impact. These quiet adjustments say, without a word, I'm not here on autopilot. I'm here because I choose to be. And once people begin to recognize that difference, they often start to appreciate you again, sometimes in ways they had long forgotten. Now, let's move on to another essential step: being kind, but with strong boundaries. Kindness is a beautiful and powerful trait. It has the ability to build bridges, heal old wounds, and show others that you haven't allowed bitterness to take hold in your heart. But here's something many people don't realize: kindness without boundaries can often lead to deep pain, especially as we grow older. Many of us were raised with the belief that we should always help others, give freely, and serve without expecting anything in return. While that generosity may seem noble, it can quietly become a trap. Over time, people may stop seeing you as a person with feelings and limits, and instead begin to view you simply as a convenience. So here's the key: you don't need to stop being kind. You just need to stop offering kindness in ways that cost you your peace of mind. You can still say, I care about you, and also say, no. Both can coexist. You can offer your help and still protect your time and energy. Being kind doesn't mean allowing yourself to be walked over. It means offering warmth from a place of strength and self-respect, not from obligation or guilt. Take Harold, for example, an 80-year-old man with a neighbor who often asked him for rides, favors, and little errands. In the beginning, Harold was happy to help. He enjoyed being of service and felt good about it. But as time went on, the requests became more frequent. The gratitude faded, and Harold started feeling less like a neighbor and more like an unpaid chauffeur. One day, Harold decided it was time to change something. He kindly told his neighbor, I'll be happy to help once this week, but I won't be able to do it regularly anymore. The neighbor was caught off guard at first, but to Harold's surprise, they respected his decision. Harold's kindness didn't disappear. He still offered to help, but now it was on his terms, within limits that protected his well-being. That's what kindness with boundaries looks like. It doesn't push people away. It simply invites them into the space you're willing and able to offer. No more, no less. Here's something many people often overlook. Healthy boundaries can actually make relationships stronger. They prevent resentment from building. They create honesty and clarity, and they teach others how to care for you in ways that don't leave you feeling empty or drained. If you've found yourself feeling kind but exhausted, helpful but quietly resentful, it might be time to take a step back and realign your approach. You deserve to give from a place of joy, from a place that feels right to you, not just to keep others comfortable or to avoid conflict. Generosity should uplift both the giver and the receiver, not leave you feeling drained. It's important to remember that your time, your kindness, and your energy are precious. You have every right to offer them in ways that feel fulfilling, not in ways that leave you feeling empty or taken for granted. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please take a moment to leave a comment with the number 6 below. It lets me know you're here, and I appreciate hearing from you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of our upcoming videos filled with more valuable tips and inspiring stories. Your support truly makes it possible for us to continue creating meaningful, thoughtful content to encourage and empower you. Now, let's move into the final strategy: say less, but mean more. There is something quietly magnetic about a person who speaks less, but carries depth and conviction in every word. When you're feeling overlooked or undervalued, your first instinct may be to explain, to defend, or to try convincing others of your worth. But often, the most powerful response isn't found in long explanations. It's found in your calm, steady actions and your quiet confidence. When you begin to speak less, but with greater intention, people notice. They lean in a little closer. They start paying more attention to what you do say, and just as importantly, they start to feel the weight of what you leave unsaid. Take Clara, for example, a 76-year-old woman who had always been the peacekeeper in her family. Whenever tensions ran high or plans fell apart, Clara would step in, sending long, detailed messages to smooth things over and fix every issue. But over time, This constant effort left her feeling drained and unheard. One day, Clara decided to change her approach. Instead of sending long explanations, she simply said, "That didn't feel right to me," and left it at that. No further discussion, no attempts to convince anyone, and to her surprise, that one simple sentence had far more impact than anything she'd ever written before. Why did it work? Because it was real. It came from a place of honesty, from a woman who no longer felt the need to justify herself just to be respected. Speaking less isn't about shutting down or withdrawing from the people around you. It's about standing tall and letting your truth speak for itself. You don't need to defend your choices to those who constantly question your worth. You don't need to fill the silence just to make others feel comfortable. Instead, keep your words calm, keep them simple. Let your steady presence carry the message that you know exactly who you are, whether others choose to recognize it or not. This approach won't magically change how everyone treats you overnight, but it will change something equally important. It will shift the energy you bring into every room. It will remind others, in the most subtle yet powerful way, that you are no longer seeking to be seen. You already see yourself clearly, and often, that quiet self-assurance is exactly what draws others back to seeing you too. Take a quiet moment to reflect on the 7 simple but powerful strategies we've explored together. Which one spoke to you the most? Which one feels like the right place for you to begin making a shift in your life? Perhaps it's learning to embrace the power of silence, letting your calm presence speak louder than any explanation ever could. Maybe it's about guarding your time more fiercely, treating every moment like the precious resource it truly is. Or it might be the simple yet transformative act of doing something every single day that reminds you of your own worth and importance. Whatever it is, I want you to remember one thing. You have not lost your value. Even if others have overlooked it or taken it for granted, your worth has never disappeared. It has always been there, waiting for you to recognize it again. And often, it only takes one small, intentional shift, a pause, a quiet no, or a slight change in your daily routine, to wake others up and remind them of who you are. Even more importantly, it reminds you of your own strength, your dignity, and your place in this world. We would love to hear from you. What is one lesson you've taken from this video? How do you plan to apply it in your own life this week? Your personal stories and reflections aren't just meaningful to us, they're also inspiring to countless others in this community who are watching and growing alongside you. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Please take a moment to leave a comment below and share one thing you've learned and how you plan to use it moving forward. Your words matter here, and every comment brings new insight and encouragement to others. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, we'd be grateful if you could like, subscribe, and share it with others. Your support makes it possible for us to continue creating thoughtful, empowering content to inform and uplift viewers like you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Wishing you good health, happiness, peace, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.